Hey Compass Youth, how are you? Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Whether you are watching with us right now on a Friday night, or maybe you have joined us at another time, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching, thanks so much for joining. Last couple of weeks have been about gratitude and an offering of the heart, which is what Jade spoke about, and really want to encourage you to go back, jump on that message if you missed it, or maybe you want to just highlight and go through some of the things that really spoke to you. And so I want you right now to stop and pick 3 things that you are grateful for today.
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
Not yet.
Hey, are we there yet?
No.
Well, are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
Yes.
Really?
No.
So if you want to go and see a friend or go to the shops, you will need to either jump in your car, jump on your bike, jump on a train, and you're going to have to go from A to B to get there. Very simple, I know. But sometimes that journey is beautiful. You have the sun shining and blue skies, and it's just smooth sailing. But then other times you might be on your bike and all of a sudden it starts to rain and you forgot your raincoat and you didn't take a spare change of clothes. Maybe you've been on a plane before and you have had the best flight, had the loveliest flight attendants, the greatest food, not really. Maybe some actually lovely, friendly people sitting around you, or maybe when you've arrived and someone said, "How was your flight?" You had someone snoring near you. Maybe it was someone's baby crying half the time. Maybe you don't like sitting in the aisle seat and you had to get up and go to the bathroom and climb over 2 other people. So I wonder how they're going to do social distancing, actually. That'll be very interesting. Anyway, but sometimes our journeys and our A to Bs are not always smooth sailing. We know that life is not always perfect and smooth sailing and blue skies and sunny days. And so tonight I want to talk to you about that little bit in between where we sometimes get to the point where we go, are we there yet? So I remember when I was about 16 or 17, I was a youth leader and I was at a youth conference, and I managed to jump into one of the services that was on, and there are hundreds of teenagers worshiping God, and it was just an incredible atmosphere. And I remember standing at the back and I thought, I'm just going to take a moment. I closed my eyes and just immerse myself in God's presence, and very vividly God gave me a vision, which he doesn't normally speak to me in that way. It was one of the first times God spoke to me in that manner, and I was completely shocked because I wasn't one for change back then. I've gotten better, but basically I could be here all day to describe the vision, but it was essentially me being a youth pastor and living in Melbourne. And at the time I was in Adelaide, and so I just kind of thought, where the heck did that come from? And so I went away with it and I prayed about it, and I was like, God, what does that mean? What does that mean for me and my life? And at the time, Eldon and I were in early stages of dating, and I was like, oh my goodness. And little did I know God had spoken to him a very, very similar and pretty much the same thing at the same conference. How cool's God? And jump ahead 10 years, and here we are. I'm turning 27 this year, and I have seen God's faithfulness and the fruit of it, and I'm here today in Melbourne and a youth pastor. But I didn't just arrive here. There was an A and there's a B, and there was this process, I guess you could say, in between it. And as I was mentioning before, it's not always smooth sailing. That journey, which we love that word, don't we? Journey. Watch MasterChef, they use it a lot. That journey from A to B is all sorts of things happen. And I want to share with you tonight a few of the things I've learned along the way. There's a verse that Paul says, or a couple of verses that he says, and it says, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. So after I got that vision and I prayed about it, and I actually went to a really trusted mentor of mine who I still speak to today and influenced my life greatly today and challenged me, asked me a really good question that I still ask myself this today, and you may have even had me ask this to you. they asked me, they said, well, what are you doing today to get you there? If Melbourne and being a youth pastor is something God's given you, and that is a passion and a desire of your heart, and God's gifted you in that, then what are you doing to develop that today? And so, youth, I just wanted to encourage you and just hopefully spark something within you. That if there are dreams or visions, maybe someone's already spoken something over you, maybe someone said, hey, you're really good at this. Have you thought about that? I just want to encourage you that this time, being a youth, being a young person, being a teenager is not a waste of time. It's not invaluable. It's not just this passing through to get you to being an adult. And that when that happens, then everything's going to fall into place. That this time that you may see as a are we there yet moment, or maybe it's a, I don't even know where I'm going yet moment, that God can still work in that, and God does work in that. And so I just want to encourage you, go to God and say, Lord, help me, what do you have for me? What are your plans and purposes for me? And if you've been given something, and you have a dream or a passion or a vision for your life, then go to God and say, what can I be doing now, God, to prepare myself for the seasons of life to come? Because I can tell you right now that when I was 16, 17, I was in love with Jesus and I was reading his word, but who I was and the character at that time, it would not carry me in the days that I'm in today. I needed to go through a few years period of growing in my faith, growing in my practical abilities even, to become the wife, the youth pastor, the mum that I am today. And so youth, don't waste this time. I just want to encourage you, and I want to actually give you some pointers as to what can you do, what can you do now to actually invest into your future, and not just for your future, because I don't want you to keep thinking in this when and then mentality. We're really good at that, right? So when I'm not tired or when I have more time, I'll exercise or I'll read my Bible or listen to church's live stream from last week. We're really good at that. And then we forget that there's actually an in-between. Like there's the when and the then, and there's somewhere in between. We actually have to do it. And so what are some of the things when you go on a road trip that you pull along? Think about what I was saying before about when you go to a friend's house and you go in the car, you go on your road trip, or maybe you jump on the plane and you're on your journey. And you remember and you go, next time I'll bring an umbrella, or next time I think I might request the aisle seat. And so I want to show you some of those things that I've learned. Those next times, I'm going to do this. What do you do when you go on a road trip? Well, one of the first things that came to my mind when I go on a road trip or just a trip or a journey is I love snacks. Snacks get me through whenever we do like a drive to Adelaide or like a plane ride. Even though they give you snacks, I don't necessarily have to take them, which is good. But I love snacks. And some of my favorite things, I don't know if you could call this a snack, but I'm putting it in my category of good old KFC chicken nuggets or some chips. That's a good little snack. Chocolate. This is like a half-eaten Easter egg that I'm working my way through. Chicken crimpies is another favorite of mine. Maltesers. Why don't you put in the comments some of your favorite snacks that you like to bring along with you? Maybe if you've got any right now, why don't you pull them up to the Zoom screens? We'd love to see them. What are you snacking on? I have this timer that comes up for me. If I've spent like 30 minutes on Instagram, it kind of comes up and it says you've spent 30 minutes on Instagram today. And sometimes I'm like, have I? Like, really? And it's added up, 1 minute here, 2 minutes there, a couple of minutes here. So what are you snacking on? I want you to have a think. Please hear me. There's nothing wrong with social media, and those we've seen in this time that actually technology has brought people together, and it's phenomenal when it's used positively. And Fraser did such a brilliant job in his rapid fire the other week, and I encourage you to go back and watch it. It's just 2 minutes as he shared about grabbing your phone and looking at your screen time to stop making the excuses that you don't have time. I read this study. There's a great organization in the US that did this study, and they had thousands of people aged 8 through to 80, and they got them to read their Bibles during the week, however many times, whatever their normal was. And they basically each week got them to fill in this survey. And very long thing short, essentially people who read their Bibles a minimum of 4 times a week had significant reductions in depression, in anxiety. There was increase in peace within the home. There's so much. I can send you the study if you would like it. It's phenomenal results. And so what are you snacking on? Are you snacking on the Word of God? Are you snacking on wholesome things? The next thing I thought about when I go on a trip is entertainment. It's what we're seeing. Jade spoke so brilliantly the other week about the eyes of our heart. Where is our vision focused on? And there's a really, really great verse in Matthew chapter 6, verse 22. And it says, the eye is the lamp of the body. If your eyes are healthy, your whole body will be full of light. I read this great little caption commentary to this verse, and it says, our eyes are the entrance to our hearts and minds. And as such, they provide a doorway to our very souls. Ephesians 1:8 says, I pray that your hearts will be flooded with light so that you can understand the confident hope that he has given to those who he has called. There are a lot of scriptures. There's actually over 100 references in the Bible about the eyes of our heart. What are you watching? What are you taking in that could potentially be blocking the light and causing darkness within you? Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23 to 25. It might be one you've heard before. It says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. It's so important what we're looking at and what we're feeding ourselves in that way, and not becoming, not letting things that are not healthy become normal. I know that often people who go and end up having to get glasses, it's not until they get the glasses that they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize my eyes were this bad. And so sometimes we're not even aware of what's actually blocking our eyesight. I want to encourage you, go to God and say, God, what's distracting me? When I go on a road trip or a journey, a trip or whatever, what comes to mind is the scenery. One of my favorite things is getting the window seat on the plane, no matter where I'm going, even if it's just a good old Adelaide. I love looking out and seeing the clouds. I love coming into the city or wherever I'm going and seeing everything from just such that bird's eye point of view. Or when I'm in the car, I don't know if you've seen this meme going around. When a sad song comes on in the car and you look out the window and pretend it's in a music video. I love road trips to Adelaide, especially when we go early in the morning and I get to watch the sunrise. It's just stunning. There's a beautiful psalm that you may have heard before, and it's from Psalms 121. And it says, I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. I know for me, when I look out across nature and I look out across the clouds and I look at the sunrise, it immediately makes me think about God, the maker of the heavens and the earth. And I think if he can do that, and if he can create this beautiful, stunning, incredible world we live in, how much more can he use and work in my life and create in my life? I want to let you in on a little secret. And some of you may have been thinking this the whole time. There is no arrival. I remember when I got to Melbourne, I was about 20, I just got married. And I realized, I was like, oh, I'm here. Now what? And I actually realized that absolutely there are monumental times in our lives that God gives us these markers where he gives us guidance as to where and direction into where to go and what we're doing. But in terms of who we are and who he's growing and developing us into, that it is a infinite, ongoing, until we're in heaven, pursuit. I very quickly realized that my life, is a beautiful, fun, adventurous, disappointing, sometimes unpredictable, but insanely good pursuit of knowing God, becoming more like him, and representing his love as best I possibly can in every season and every moment of my life. There's a verse from Philippians chapter 4, verses 12 to 13. And this is Paul speaking, and he says, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. And I want to end with that tonight, youth, that Paul's secret to being content in every season of life, no matter what that looks like, whether you're in that "are we there yet" moment, or whether you're still working out and asking God for direction, or maybe you've hit that place and you're like, well, now what? VCE students, I am sure you're like, oh my gosh, are we there yet? You're halfway, you're just over halfway. I just want to encourage you that your help comes from God. I just want to encourage you that what you feed yourself is important, that your life right now is valuable. You don't need to wait till you're 20 or 30 or 35. What you do right now and what you invest into right now isn't just going to help you right now. It will serve you in the seasons of life that are to come and the incredible plans that God has for you. And so youth, wherever you find yourself right now, whether you are needing direction, you're in the "are we there yet? I'm not liking this growth or this process," or maybe you're loving it, maybe it's a sunny day today, or maybe you're kind of like, oh, well, what now? Check what you're snacking on. Check what you're watching and what you're fixing your eyes to. And fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. He is the author. He is the best writer that you could ever come across.